Okay, to open up our color theory course, we're going to start talking about how people understand color. What do we even talk about when we're talking about understanding color? Oh my goodness. Are we going to do... Woo! To restart. Understanding color. So, to start understanding color, we need to understand that color is experienced at different levels. There's awareness, use, research, and study. So how do we even perceive color? We can start with studying the eye. We know that the human retina contains two types of cells that detect and respond to light. And these types of cells are called rods and cones. Rods function in low and dim light, whereas cones are sensitive to different color receptors. There's three different types that are sensitive to red, green, and blue. All color is actually light being reflected back to the eye. That's the most important thing to understand about color, is that it is not that any given object is emitting that color. It is that light is hitting that object, and whatever bounces back to your eye is what signals to your brain that the object is that color. So once that reflected light enters the eye and the cones in the eye send a signal to the visual cortex of the brain, the visual cortex is set up to process the signal to determine the number of cones activated and the strength of their signal. So our eyes don't actually do any of the interpretation of what color is something. It's actually all done in the visual cortex of our brain. So our eyes are just sensory organs. They are just simply sensing the amount of light hitting them and what wavelengths. That's what those rods and, the cones do, is they're detecting different wavelengths on the red, green, and blue spectrum. And they're sending that strength and signal to your visual cortex, and your visual cortex is interpreting and creating that color inside your brain for you to see. So it's kind of weird to wrap your mind around that everything that we see around us is not seen via our eyes. It's intercepted via our eyes, and our visual cortex is creating the images for us. Which is kind of like one of those like big brain galaxy moments, okay? So we have our eye, we have the optic nerve traveling to our lateral geniculate nucleus, and that disperses those signals to our visual cortex back here, interpreting all of that for us. So while it may seem like you're looking at things here, you're looking at things using back here. If you get a head injury back here, it can affect your vision. You might not actually have any damage to your eyes. So thus color is sensed by the eye, but perceived by the brain. If you want to talk about the difference between being sensed and perceived, you might want to delve more into like the study of the mind and brains and psychology and all of that fun stuff. So studies have shown that individuals who become blind due to damage or degradation of the eye can still experience synesthesia, where they see colors even years after losing vision. So synesthesia is a neurological condition where sometimes people are, their visual cortex is triggered by non-visual stimuli, such as hearing a song, or even I knew somebody once who, for different words, it was all different words, but especially for people's names, like if he heard a name, and sometimes it would change throughout how he knew people differently, he would strongly experience like a visual color with somebody's name. So that was like kind of his fun icebreaker thing that he would do at parties. He'd be like, tell me your name, and how you say it, I'll tell you what color you are. Which is kind of like a cool, fun thing, but also I imagine could be kind of annoying if you're actually experiencing synesthesia. So sometimes it's also things like numbers become strongly associated with color in a visual way. It's that their visual cortex is activating even though there's no stimulus to the eye. There's like some sort of signals or wires crossed going on. And it's usually not a debilitating condition, but like I said, it can be annoying or potentially troublesome if you're strongly experiencing color when you're trying to determine the color of something, such as like a stoplight, something like that. So their visual cortex is still functioning, and they still have a developed synaptic framework. And so even if they go blind because, say, literally like they lost their eyes due to glaucoma or something like that, they might still experience that color. I just think that's so cool. So there's three kind of different colors that we can talk about, or ways that colors are used. Environmental color, graphic colors, and then colors of objects. So it's ways that we're thinking about color. So environmental color, graphic colors, color of objects. What is that? We'll talk about environmental color first. Environmental color is simply colors that we associate with or believe to be part of environments. It's the colors that are all around us, the colors that we associate with things like winter, the outdoors, the dentist's office maybe even might have a particular color, or a doctor's office that we associate with those. The color of a lake, the color of a banana. Well, that's kind of the color of an object. I'm getting a little off topic here. Or say, like the gray wall. It's environmental color. It's color that is produced by things in the environment, the light bouncing around inside that environment, and giving off an overall like color vibe. Usually it's because things in that environment are closely aligned and reflecting the same type of light back to you, such as if you're looking at a bunch of trees. So if you're looking at a bunch of trees and all of that chlorophyll is reflecting our green and yellow light predominantly back to our eyes, we're going to interpret the environmental color of a forest as probably green. Unless it's winter, then it might be brown or blue. But it's kind of like, not all places have like super strong environmental color. Like in here, I might be like, we could go with gray. That orange is pretty striking too. So I might kind of be like, we could pick something that's kind of in the orangey gray spectrum. Fall leaves, another example. Our leaves change color. They're now reflecting more of that red spectrum back to our eye. We've lost a lot of the blue and the green, and so we have an environmental color of red, autumn. Some more environmental color options. So we have some like lilacs and things in here as well, adding like little bits of purple but predominantly green. Environmental colors can also be created by people. So if we're kind of going with like a monochromatic color scheme, or just a more eclectic color scheme, these are all colors in our environment and colors that are affecting us by just being around us. Environmental color can also be heavily influenced by the colors that are available to people. We'll talk a little bit more about this painting later and why it's a complex example of both environmental color as well as graphic color in some ways. So what are graphic colors? So graphic depictions of color vary from print advertisements, painting, book covers, textiles, wall art, and even more. Colors used in graphics are often referencing environmental colors to evoke familiarity. So, for example, here we have a graphic color, a printed color, something that is specifically chosen and put in front of us to try to evoke an emotion. Here we have green, probably trying to, well, what do you all think that this is trying to evoke a feeling of? Either of these. What, just when you think of like green, what are some thoughts that you have about that color? Yeah.
It's like fresh.
Fresh?
At least
For the V8, yeah.
I don't know, because gives me nausea.
Nausea?
It makes me nausea.
Yeah, the V8 one's like a little trippy.
Yeah, it looks like smokestacks out of a. Yeah, like it's totally confusing to me.
Yeah, it is kind of weird, huh?
Like
I think it's supposed to be like kind of like bubbling out of a forest, but I don't know. It actually kind of looks like a weird cauldron or something. So in these, the colors and the patterns are probably trying to steer us towards ideas of like nature, sunsets, things like that. Whether or not they're successful, eh. All right, so here we have some colors trying to evoke a different emotion. What emotion do you think, or environment, do you think that they're trying to convey here?
warmth, like a homey feeling, but like I would say the one on the left is definitely like a Y2K vibe.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like that poppy kind of. But the other one's a lot more like homey.
If you had to put a season to these colors,
Spring.
yeah. So there's it's a spring thing, kind of giving it away here. Yeah, but also like yellow tulips and things that we see from our environment that we start associating with like different seasons. That's a good example of referencing environmental color using graphic color. Well, all right. We also have cultural perceptions of color. So colors might also use cultural references to convey meaning or purpose, such as the red stop sign. Because we have the red stop sign, people are often associating red with stop. There are also other reasons why we chose red as the stop sign color and as a warning color. So for example, we'll commonly Euro-American cultures associate red with things like blood, passion, danger or warning, or excitement. In China, red might be interpreted as meaning luck, happiness, prosperity, vitality, and celebration. So these cultural perceptions can change the types of graphic colors that we use. So if you think about like a lot of animals that have red coloration might be venomous. Some of them might be poisonous. If you eat them, you might die. I'm thinking like different poison dart frogs and things like that specifically. But the cultural, if you change cultures, things might be different. Some things have gotten pretty uniform now as we've become like more globalistically in sync. Sometimes it's handy to have a universal symbol that just means like, hey, don't cross. So these perceptions can even change across times in the same geographic areas as cultures shift. So my example here is pre-mid 19th century, white was generally the gender neutral color for children because it was easy to clean with bleaching agents. You dress your kids in white and then you bleach the heck out of their clothes every time they get them dirty. In 1918, trade publications such as Earnshaw's Infants Department start advertising that the generally accepted rule is pink for boys and blue for girls. Now that sounds interesting.
It is really cute.
Right? So here we have pink for boys and blue for girls. When this originally started in it's kind of like fuzzy about like when this originally starts that we start associating any color with children whatsoever. But pink is seen as a derivative of red, and red is a robust, masculine, manly color, while as blue is associated strongly with the Virgin Mary in Catholicism, and being demure, quiet, and calming. So that was seen as a better color for little girls. Now we start getting things flip-flopping once I think just like the pink becomes less red and more like rosy toned and associated with flowers and florals and things like that. And then the colors kind of get switched, and now we have like, hey, green is a good gender neutral color for babies, or really any color is a good color for babies. Babies love color.
Some of it has to do with when textiles would become more readily available. Like you wouldn't see like a super vivid red because you would take so much money to get that vivid red.
that is also true. Is initially when we delve into like how color is like being manufactured later when we talk about historic color, like you weren't getting like a bright like cardinal red unless you were really, really wealthy and didn't have to wash your garments very often, because red is what's called a very fugitive color, which means it disappears really fast. Whereas blue, you could more reliably get a blue. Green, you can pretty reliably get a green out in nature. All right, so the natural color or iconic color of objects can also affect how we view color. So this is the color of objects. Sometimes a deep cultural knowledge is needed to understand the importance of color in any given society. So, for example, here are some cultural perceptions of color. Sometimes our relationship to color is affected by advancements in technology and the scarcity or abundance of pigments. So some examples that we'll talk about in this course will be things like Tyrian purple, the color of royalty, Vanta black, the storied and pretty recent color invention of how can we get something so dark and so black. And then arsenic green, the favorite color of the Victorians, who maybe were all kind of poisoning themselves. They were definitely all kind of poisoning themselves a little. If you've ever heard the phrase mad as a hatter in Victorian times, not just arsenic green, but specifically arsenic green, they were dyeing lots of fake foliage to add to hats with all of these flowers. And it was pretty common to, as you painted on your foliage or whatever, and you just needed your paintbrush to just like have a little better tip. You just, you kind of put it in your mouth and use this bit to get a little better tip. And, you just put an arsenic in your mouth. So mad as a hatter comes from that as well. We might also have cultural associations with color that can be more fleeting and reflect the relationship to color and values held at a given moment. Here we have some wonderful 60s and 70s colors, where interior design was strongly being influenced by wanting to seem like you were bringing the outside indoors. You were using very earthy colors, natural patterns, florals, damasks that kind of, or damask that kind of has like vines and things going on in it. And then the shag carpeting, like, a lush, mossy forest. It is, like, semi my dream to do our guest bedroom as, like, a little bit more refined and pulled back version of this, like, beautiful green bedroom. I'll bring in my inspo picture sometime. And my mom, who grew up with this stuff because her mom bought it all secondhand, when they moved into her house and furnished her whole house, was like, oh, I hate green, because she had green shag carpeting for forever. I remember it. My grandma still had it. And I posted this picture of what I wanted to do with our guest room. And my grandma was like, oh, I should have saved my green shag carpeting for you. And I was like, I was unaware it was even gone, Grandma. Like, I'm glad it's gone, but woo. So sometimes we have cultural moments with colors, and everything becomes harvest gold and avocado green for a while. Or, millennial gray.
Right.
Yeah.
Why the orange though, man?
The orange was, so there's like the whole orangey yellow family that kind of starts with harvest gold and then just ends up being like, ooh, we can get a richer, more vibrant version of it as we go into like the modishness of the 70s and 80s. And it just, it had a moment. You will someday look back at things from your youth and be like, wow, that was a specific thing, wasn't it?
I want a conversation den real bad. Yes.
Oh, I want a conversation pit. We had there was a conversation pit at a high school it was great. We loved it.
My grandma's house had a conversation.
Every high school needs a conversation pit.
That's amazing.
Yeah, there are several conversation pits out there that have been has been built over them. You just have to look for things that were built in the right era. All right. Sometimes also things like gemstones, strongly affect our association with colors. So we have some. This is an emerald. This is it's my brother's birthstone. I'll think of it in a while.
Peridot?
Maybe, yeah. And then we have some emeralds, rubies, sapphires, all in here, which are actually like all very closely related stones. It's just like slight variations give the different color. Or the color of an animal. Sometimes, especially insects, we see like animals as objects, and we're like, ooh, or even like birds, pink flamingos. We associate colors with things. Art Deco, we're looking actually at very similar colors here as to here, but they're giving a different feel based off of how they're used, what they're associated with.
Or
Oh no. One moment. I missed one recording spot. When we think of iconic things, like iconic diners in Americana, that black, white, and red, is a very specific color scheme that is partially being chosen to evoke a sense of like edginess and hipness. If you think about the types of movies that then get associated with this culture, like Grease, Footloose, things like that, where you're like, oh, you're in these diners with this bright red furniture and this black and white, and it's very modern seeming then, because it's not a ton of patterning, but this like bright, vivid color that's suddenly available for us to put on vinyl and things like that. All right, part 2. How are we doing on time here? Oh, I wish this would stop. Okay. We can get through part 2 at least. So, color use. Let's talk about Newtonian colors. What are Newtonian colors? Maybe you've heard of Newtonian physics. It's a little related. It is a physical process discovered by Isaac Newton. So in 1666 CE, so that's Common Era, 24-year-old Isaac Newton decides to use 2 prisms and break light into its hues, which had been done before. It was known that you could take these little crystal prisms and break light into a rainbow. What no one had done yet was position 2 prisms precisely and return the light back together again. It was actually thought prior to this that the resulting colors from the prism were just caused by imperfections in the glass. There was a large understanding that was somewhat affected by the religious culture at the time in Europe, that white, pure sunlight was a gift from God, and thus could not be changed in any way, shape, or form. It is made directly from God and descended onto humanity, and it just is, and is created in all of its perfectness. Isaac Newton breaks it apart, and they're like, yeah, imperfections in the glass, we've seen this before. When it is put back together, that seriously challenges both the scientific and religious thinking at the time, because how can you remake something that can only be made by God? Well, it's wavelengths and particles of light being sent through the air. As long as you can align them back up, you can get your bright white light again. So the demonstration that pure white light is the result of all colors being reflected into the eye would not have made sense to artists at the time. They were like, yo, we get our colors from the ground and like minerals, and also alchemists. They're making a lot of our colors. We'll talk about alchemy and how it features into color theory. So the artist's perspective was mixing more pigments, more things that are different colors, equals a darker color. It doesn't equal white. The bright single pigment colors that have been produced after years of refinement and discovery, and their secrets are super closely guarded by the people that we come to understand as alchemists. Alchemists initially are after creating different colors. When you read their notes and it's like, oh, you have to do this by the light of a full moon and have all of these specific things arranged, a lot of those are actually cloaking the secrets of distilling that color by kind of putting some like mumbo jumbo in there so that it becomes a trade secret. It's no longer easy to pass on because people don't know what is the important part of actually creating this color. The medieval Christian church saw mixing pigments and colors as defiance of the natural order. They were like, no, you don't need to mix the colors. Just get the colors as they are and then apply them. God made these colors. Don't screw with it. To fully understand color, we have to both understand how it functions scientifically and artistically. Before we ever even reach this understanding, though, we were still using colors in functional ways, as well as part of our visual language, ways to mark identity and to modify our spaces. Artists have so long used color to evoke an emotional response. Basically, as long as people have thought about applying color to anything, we have been evoking an emotional response using it. So, color function, nature and culture. Let's talk about nature. So, red is highly visible on the color spectrum for most animals. It often correlates with danger or poison or animals who benefit from false advertisement. So, animals who maybe have adapted to become these colors because they also live in the same ecological niche as an actual venomous or poisonous animal. And they benefit by being confused with that animal. So, if one type of red frog always kills you, and the other type of red frog is a tasty treat, are you going to eat any red frogs if you're not very good at identifying frogs? Probably not. So when warning colors or patterning occur in nature, we refer to it as, aposematism. We also use color to signal warnings for everything from traffic to work zones. We also use color to signal less objective ideas, emotion, mood, action or drama, and identity. The specific color of your favorite sports team, anyone? Or of our favorite, icon, the Barbie movie, pink, all of that? Yeah?
Lemon Demon Spirit Fawn.
Specific color associated with that?
Red.
Red. I would have, okay. Anytime I hear lemon demon, I'm like, yellow, lemon. All right, so color can modify perception of a space or shape. Here we have our color applied up high, and so we're kind of changing where the eye is drawn. Oh my goodness. Sorry, guys.
Color can be a small state.
I don't know even where the sound went on that. I'll let myself talk from the past talk for a moment.
Color can make a small space seem larger. So I mentioned color drenching earlier, and matching the cabinets to a similar hue that's in the wallpaper and up on the ceiling allows the space to seem more unified and overall larger because your eye's not separating it. It's just intaking it all as one large space. And then you have this narrow band of pattern that kind of draws your eye further in.
All right. It can also lead the eye to an area, having a pop of color in an otherwise uniform space. Pop of different color, I should say. Here, we have plenty of blue, but that yellow really draws your eye through. Or throughout the composition, using colors. So not all of these outfits in this collection contain every single color, but by spotting them in throughout the background, they've created a more unified collection together here. It can provide emphasis to shape. It can delineate different shapes. It could delineate spaces or separate areas. Evoke an emotional response.
Okay. And
Whoa.
So we're going.
Okay. We're going to go to part You know, we can finish up part 3 tonight, and then we have a lot more time next time to do some other fun stuff. Yes, let's go ahead and do that. All right, so let's talk about color research. The very earliest colors available to humans were red, yellow, black, white, and brown. These are all called earth pigments. They're pigments that come from different types of clay or charcoal or chalk, with red and yellow specifically soil high in iron deposits creates those colors. And they're all found kind of in the earth. You can dig around and find these colors depending on where you are. Sometimes you have to travel great distances to find the iron deposits or the specific dirt and clays you're looking for. But copper, well, copper comes in a little bit later. Right now, we're not even really finding that yet in our historic record. We're basically scooping dirt off the ground, mixing it with some animal fat, or vegetable resins, tree resins, things like that, and smeared it on each other and the walls. So all these ingredients can be ground into powder and mixed with binders to create those smearable paints. So let's talk about what we have lost in the footnotes of history, LaSalle Caves. A lot of you have probably heard of LaSalle Caves. They are some caves that are in France, and they are some of our earliest known record of people creating art. I wanted to bring like a little bit more history to this discovery, though, rather than this is some art drawn on a cave wall. So these are created, thousands and thousands of years ago, but they were unknown to the world until September of 1940. We have 4 boys and a dog named Robot went on an expedition to search the tunnels of the nearby woods. These boys were Marcel Rabidat, 18, Jacques Marçal, 14, Georges Angel, 15, and Simon Cosintas? Consa, you think? Okay. I'm not sure about these last names. Age 13. Simon was actually a Jewish refugee from Paris who had come out to the countryside, been sent out actually by his parents during the German occupation of Paris during World War II. So his life was in danger during this time. But he has a moment of time to meet these local boys. They kind of take him under their wing and are like, hey, let's go explore the woods. During this time that they're exploring the woods, Robot takes off into the woods after something, and they're looking for him, and Marcel, the story goes, ends up finding the entrance to kind of a cave that they thought maybe some game or a rabbit had gone into, and that's what Robot was chasing. So they decide to start looking and digging around to just see what they can find, and they actually end up finding a cave. So the LaSalle Cave paintings are, like I said, thousands of years old. In the 2000s, scientists take tiny samples from the pigments on the walls and discover that not all of the black is actually formed from charcoal, which is what we thought at the time. The manganese oxide, called hosmonite, is probably from the Pyrenees Mountains, which is about 150 miles away. So the black that is being obtained for these paintings is being obtained purposefully for creating art. To go back a moment, to follow through, Marcel Rabidat, who is the 18-year-old in this, later fought for the French freedom fighters and was captured by the Germans and sent to a concentration camp. He did survive and lived his natural life after he was freed from the camp. I think he escaped and then got sent back and then was freed. He was kind of a cool guy, but also discovered the LaSalle Caves, so cool. So writings on color and the study of color go back to ancient Greece. In the 1st century of the Common Era, Pliny the Elder claimed that painters in classical Greece used only black, red, white, and yellow. Egyptians were, though we know that Egyptians were manufacturing a clear blue as early as 25,000 Common Era, so like theoretically people in Greece would have had access to this blue, so if they were abstaining from using blue, it was probably more for cultural reasons than access. Artists were predominantly limited by a small range of earth pigments and a few made from plants and insects. Those are expensive and hard to find. They require these specific people going out, collecting the plants and making the color. Whereas otherwise, a lot of these, you just need to know where your iron deposits are, and you as an artist can go out and get a lot of your own color. So there are European advances that happen. The greatest explosion happens of the study of advancement. The greatest explosion in the study and advancements of color begins in the late 17th and 18th century. Once again, we're talking about European advancements in color, resulting in 2 threads of inquiry: color research and color study. Color research is the search for the perfect color system, the perfect way to categorize and explain why color looks the way that it does. Whereas color studies seek more to understand the combinations and harmony created by combining colors together. The 2 paths eventually converge in today's field of study, which is color theory. So what is color study? We're going to talk about 2 historic gentlemen here. The first is Albert Munsell. You might recognize his name from the new Munsell Student Color Set, the textbook that we have for this class. He was born in 1858 to 1915, and he says that there are 3 dimensions of color: hue, value, and chroma. We're going to discuss what those are here in a little bit. The Munsell color system is both complex and kind of beautiful in its simplicity. It can describe a lot of colors using those 3 values. The value, so how close something is to complete and total objective white, and how close it is to total complete objective black. And then the hue, which is what we normally experience as, like, I think that we think about as colors, like red, green, yellow, blue. All of those are hues. And then the chroma, which is how close or far away are these colors from a theoretical neutral gray. So how bright are they, or how muted are they, is our chroma.
Is that diagram in the book?
This one?
Yeah.
I think so. I'm not sure if it's in chapter 1. But you will see it again. Then, when we talk about color study, one of my favorite people who do color studies is Joseph Albers. He is alive from 1888 to 1976, and he rejects the formality of color systems. He says, hey, how useful is it for me to say, yes, this is an R27, or whatever color system that you're using, if I don't know how to use it. His approach to color study is very intuitive and involves lots of eye training exercises. We'll use some of his studies and experiments in this class as well, because I say, hey, why not both? So Joseph Albers, his childhood, he is born, we'll talk a lot more about Munsell, so I'm going to go into Albers just a little bit more here. His childhood, he's born in Westphalia, Germany. His father was a house painter, a carpenter, and a handyman. And his mother's family were blacksmiths. His childhood included practical training in engraving glass, plumbing, wiring, and it gave Joseph a variety of lifelong confidence in the handling and manipulation of diverse materials. He studied at the Weimar Bauhaus from 1920 until closed under Nazi pressure in 1933. He then immigrated to the United States to teach at the Black Mountain College in North Carolina, and later headed to Yale to head the Department of Design, which was like a new department at the time. Albers believed that colors were not static entities, but were influenced by the colors around them. So the way that we perceive color is not perceived just by knowing that this is the true color of this specific hue, chroma, and value. It is affected by also all the other colors around it. Famous for his graphic screen prints that juxtapose colors and shapes, he focused on the interaction between these elements to create interest and contrast. And in many ways, we see him as like the father of modern graphic design. So that is our overview of color and expression, parts 1 through 3 that we managed to get through tonight. Woohoo for us. Go ahead and take, let's see, was it a 7-minute break until 7 o'clock. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about the materials, and then we will go over what our assignment is going to be for next time. Like I said, it can kind of extend over the weekend, but we're going to need these completed by Tuesday for class. All right.